Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Jeffrey Griffith. I'm a senior advisor to the Global Center for ICT in Parliament, and I'm pleased to be the moderator and also a partial presenter at this afternoon's session, which will last until 1700 hours. We have so much to cover. We have special authority to go to that hour. We have presentations from concerning 3 websites today, which I think you will find extremely interesting. Our speakers will move to the PC over here, so there will be a little bit of shuffling as we change speakers. We apologize for that in advance. As a way of introduction, however, I want to share with you some of the work that a committee of the Global Center is currently doing to update guidelines for websites, which were originally published by the Inter-Parliamentary Union, or IPU, in the year 2000. I'm going to shift over to the PC now and talk about that. By way of introduction to some of the issues involved in this effort, let me begin with a very brief glance at 3 websites that are not parliamentary websites. I do that because I want to expand our thinking just a bit, and I leave you with this question. Think about which one is the best of the 3. First, we have a picture of the New York Times website. The New York Times is considered by many in the United States, not by all, but by many, to be the most authoritative newspaper. Next, we have the website of Amazon.com. Amazon.com is a seller of books, magazines, CDs, digital books, and it has made extensive use, pioneering use of user evaluations, user content, and user profiles. And third, and one of my favorite websites, the Thalys website, which allows people to make bookings from Brussels to Paris and back again. I've used this often, and this website is one that must be accurate, it must be timely, and it must be complete, or its customers are very unhappy. So I pose you the question, is one of these websites better than the others, or are they all just different, and do they each have to be judged by their own standards? My answer to this is that they are all good websites. They can be judged by some of the same standards, but they must also be judged by standards that are different for each, based on the mission of the parent organization, the purpose of the site itself in helping the organization fulfill that mission, and by the needs and interests of the users of that site. So we deal with the question, what is the role of standards, particularly with regard to parliamentary websites? And I would suggest to you that the role of parliamentary guidelines for websites is to first help ensure quality, effectiveness, and usefulness of the website, but also to still allow innovation and creativity. And of course, we must have flexibility, because there are significant variations among parliaments in how they work. There are changes in technology that continue to evolve, and there are differences in social and political cultures, all of which must be accommodated. This is the cover of the Inter-Parliamentary Union Guidelines for Websites, published in the year 2000. It was one of the first attempts to make recommendations to guide the development of websites and to foster good practices in the creation of a communication tool that was becoming increasingly important to parliaments. At the time of its publication, the IPU estimated that 57% of parliaments had websites. Based on the based on the report that I shared with you this morning, that figure is now above 90% for all parliaments. The IPU guidelines were helpful to many parliaments and have been used in a number of evaluation studies. I think we'll hear about some of that this afternoon. The guidelines offered recommendations in 3 key areas: content, interactivity, tools and links, and utility and design considerations. As I reported to you in the opening session of the conference, when we conducted our worldwide survey last year, and we published the results of that survey in our report, World eParliament Report 2008, there were a number of questions that dealt with parliamentary websites, some of them explicitly based on these guidelines by the IPU. Let me share the results of some of those questions. This chart compares the responses to 4 questions. Does the website have a list of members? Does it have the status of current parliamentary business? Does it have searchable databases? And does it have frequently asked questions? As we can see in the first column on the left of this chart, we do well for the list of members, with almost 100% providing this information. The second column shows that while over 70% reported that they give the status of parliamentary business, this does also mean that 30% do not provide this information. From the third column, we can see that while 60% have a searchable database, the other side is that 40% do not. And finally, over 60% do not offer a section on frequently asked questions where users can get explanations about their websites. This is one of the most basic items for support of users. This chart looks at the percentage of respondents to the survey who reported that they have specific documents on their website. The first column on the left shows the percentage who have the plenary schedule online. The middle column shows the percentage who have plenary debate, and the last shows plenary votes. These numbers are encouraging, although that we can see from the middle column that while almost 80% provide debate in plenary, over 20% do not. And from the column on the right, we can see that 30% do not yet provide votes taken in parliaments. Now, of course, there are differences in the way in which parliaments vote and conduct their business, but to the extent that we seek greater transparency and accountability in parliaments, voting is a key measure. We can hope that we would see an increase in these percentages in the coming year. Besides providing the full text of their documents, many parliaments also try to offer information that explains the meaning of those documents and the legislative process. Here we see the percentage of respondents who provide an explanation of bills, a summary of committee meetings, and a budget assessment. It's important to note that fewer than half of all the respondents indicated they provide any of these materials on their websites. These percentages suggest that there's an ample opportunity for improvement in this area of explanatory material. Well, the IPU guidelines have served us well for a number of years, but the authors of the guidelines themselves recognized that they would eventually need to be updated. As they said, Internet technology is constantly evolving. It will be necessary to review and update the guidelines in light of future developments. The Global Center project, in consultation with the IPU, has formed an advisory group that is currently reviewing an initial draft. That draft is included in the booklet that you received with the agenda for the Parliament. The group is going to be reviewing these draft guidelines and hopes to come up with final recommendations by the end of January 2009. This is an open invitation to all of you in this conference to look at those proposed guidelines and to send us your comments. As I said, you'll find them in the yellow booklet that has the agenda and the background paper, and in the back a discussion of those proposed guidelines. Let me hasten to say that these are very much a work in progress. No decisions have been made, and all of the members of the group are hard at work thinking about what the guidelines should finally be.